picture this. You're in the heart of Phoenix
Oh, yeah.
on a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
It's October 20th, 2006.
Okay.
The air is warm. People are out
Right.
enjoying the start of the weekend.
Sure.
But for 27-year-old Germaine Johnson,
Yeah.
this night will take a tragic turn,
Mm.
ending in a mystery that has haunted his family
Wow.
and the city for almost 2 decades.
Almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
So what makes Germaine's case so intriguing is that it starts with this feeling of, you know,
Normalcy.
normalcy. Yeah, like a typical Friday night.
Right.
You know, he was out with his cousin and a friend, just running an errand,
Yeah.
picking up some cigars
Some
at the local liquor store.
Yeah. And this ordinary errand
Right.
becomes the backdrop for this horrible crime.
Yes.
And we're left trying to figure out
Yeah.
what happened to this young man.
That's right.
So we've gathered police reports, witness testimonies, and accounts from Germaine's family to try to piece together the story of what happened and why his case remains unsolved after all this time.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to not only focus on the events of that night,
Right.
but also how this affected his loved ones and the community. You know, we're going to examine the investigation, look into the leads, the challenges, and the questions that are still unanswered.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to that Friday evening, October 20th.
Okay.
A little before 9 p.m., Germaine's with his cousin,
Right.
Milo,
Mm-hmm.
and their friend, Kyle.
Huh.
They stopped at the Cork and Bottle liquor store.
Okay.
And this store becomes more than just a place to buy cigars.
Right.
It becomes a really critical location in the investigation.
It does. And, you know, a week before the murder, there was a confrontation at that same store
Oh, wow.
involving Germaine and Milo.
Okay.
They had a run-in with a group of men outside.
Uh-huh.
And this fight got pretty bad, like guns were drawn. One of the bullets even grazed Germaine's car.
Oh, my gosh. So that earlier incident
Right.
really raises questions.
It does.
Do you think, based on your experience, that Germaine could have sensed he was in danger that night?
You know, it's hard to say what was going through his mind,
Yeah.
but, you know, that prior encounter definitely adds a layer of complexity to the case.
Right.
And it suggests that the shooting wasn't random,
Right.
raising the possibility that Germaine was a target.
Yeah.
But the question is why?
Exactly.
What was the motive?
Right.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Right. And after leaving the liquor store that Friday,
Okay.
Germaine, Milo, and Kyle headed down an alley
Mm-hmm.
behind the building.
Okay.
And it was there
Yeah.
that they encountered 2 men.
Okay.
And from the witness accounts, it seems like the tension was immediate.
Right. So the alley becomes the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
And according to the witnesses, there's a brief exchange of words in attempt to, you know, calm things down.
Right.
And there's even a suggestion of settling things with a fist fight,
Uh-huh.
implying that they wanted to avoid further violence.
Mm-hmm.
But things quickly got out of control.
Yeah. One of the men draws a gun, shots are fired.
Right.
Milo and Kyle scramble for cover
Yeah.
as Germaine is hit.
Oh.
And that image of gunshots echoing through the alley
Yeah.
is chilling.
It really is. The police arrive and find Germaine critically wounded,
Oh, yeah.
2 terrified witnesses, and a scene that immediately presents challenges.
Right.
You know, there's no surveillance footage,
Wow.
few people willing to talk,
Mm-hmm.
and limited cooperation from people in the area,
Right.
including the liquor store
Mm.
and a nearby apartment complex.
This reluctance to speak, this code of silence,
Right.
it speaks volumes.
Yeah, it really does.
Do you think people in the community knew more than they were letting on?
It's a definite possibility.
Right.
I mean, fear can be a powerful silencer. You know, witnesses might be afraid of retaliation, especially if there's a perception of gang involvement.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Germaine's mother, Veronica,
Yes.
rushed to Phoenix from her home in Alabama.
Right.
Can you imagine the heartbreak of receiving that news?
Of course, it's a tragedy no parent should have to go through.
Right. And the desperate need for answers.
Absolutely. The family was in deep grief,
Yeah.
and they were determined to find justice for Germaine.
And it was during this time that Germaine's girlfriend,
Oh, okay.
Julia, revealed something crucial to the investigation.
Oh, wow. What's that?
That the previous week's incident wasn't just a fight, but a shootout where Germaine had returned fire.
Oh, wow. So that adds another layer
Right.
to the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
While it doesn't justify Germaine's murder,
Right.
it does make you wonder about what was going on
Yeah.
and what the motives might have been.
Right. So while we have this new information,
Yeah.
we're still left with the question, why was Germaine targeted?
Yeah, the motive remains a mystery. And adding to the challenge,
Okay.
The attackers were only known by their nicknames Maniac and Xavier.
Nicknames.
Yeah, nicknames. And despite giving descriptions and looking at photos, neither Milo nor Kyle could ID them.
So we have nicknames, descriptions, a possible connection to a previous altercation, but still no clear suspect.
Right, and that's where forensic science comes into play.
Okay.
You know, a DNA hit from the crime scene offered a glimmer of hope.
Finally, a solid piece of evidence.
Right, a potential lead for the investigators.
Was this the turning point in the investigation?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was what they call non-probative.
Okay.
This means it didn't directly link to the crime
Right.
or to the suspects.
Right.
You know, it could have been from someone who was in the area
Right.
but wasn't actually involved in the shooting.
This must have been incredibly frustrating for everyone involved.
Absolutely. It's like taking one step forward and then two steps back.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the family. Right.
They're looking for answers
Yeah.
and justice.
Right.
And this must have been a huge setback.
Yeah. Despite the dead end with the DNA, Germaine's family never gave up hope.
Yeah, they were relentless
Mm-hmm.
in their search for the truth.
They were relentless. They launched the Silent Witness campaign,
Right.
which allows people to give information about crimes anonymously.
Yes, think of it like a lifeline for cold cases,
Yeah.
offering hope where other methods have failed.
So this campaign was designed to encourage people to come forward,
Right.
even if they were afraid to be identified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about taking away the fear of retaliation
Right,
and letting people share what they know without putting themselves in danger.
right. Germaine's mother, Veronica,
Yes.
was very vocal,
Yeah.
making public pleas for anyone with information to come forward.
Yeah, she wanted to keep her son's memory alive
Right.
and make sure his case wasn't forgotten.
It's a mother's unwavering love
Yeah.
and a testament to her strength in the face of unimaginable tragedy. Absolutely.
But years passed with no substantial leads.
Right.
Did anything ever come from the Silent Witness campaign?
Well, there were tips,
Mm.
leads that had to be investigated,
Okay.
but nothing concrete enough to solve the case.
Mm-hmm.
Then, after years of silence,
Yeah.
a new piece of information came up from
Yeah.
an unexpected source, an inmate named Robert.
This sounds like it could be a major turning point in the investigation.
It could be.
What did Robert reveal?
Robert claimed to have information about Germaine's murder.
Okay.
He said his friend Edward confessed to burying the gun used in the crime.
Wow.
He described it as a weapon with demons in it,
Oh my gosh.
a very haunting detail.
Right.
And he even gave them a hand-drawn map
Wow.
to the supposed burial site,
Well,
just a block away from where Germaine was shot.
this sounds like a big break in the case.
It does.
A confession, a map to the murder weapon,
Yeah.
at a location so close to the crime scene.
Right.
It's almost too perfect.
The details Robert provided were really specific,
Right.
and they aligned with what they already knew about the case.
Yeah.
He even mentioned Edward being involved in a shootout at the
Mhm.
Arrowwood apartment complex,
Oh, wow.
the same complex where Germaine and Milo had their run-in.
This connection to the Arrowwood apartments adds another layer of intrigue.
It does.
But was this information too good to be true?
That's what investigators had to figure out.
Right.
They had to consider the source,
Yeah.
you know, a convicted felon
Mm.
offering information years after the fact.
Right.
Was Robert credible,
Mm-hmm.
or was there another motive?
So did they pursue this lead?
They did.
Good.
Despite Robert being a convicted felon,
Right.
the details he gave were too specific
Yeah.
and matched up too closely with the facts of the case.
Mm-hmm.
Detective Cervantes, the lead investigator,
Okay.
he got a search warrant for the burial site.
So there was enough probable cause for a judge to authorize a search based solely on this inmate's testimony.
There must have been.
Right.
Remember, Robert didn't just offer a confession.
Mm-hmm.
He gave specific details about the gun, its location,
Right.
and even linked his friend to the Arrowwood apartments,
Right.
which was connected to the earlier shootout.
Hmm.
It's possible this extra information was enough to convince a judge
Okay.
that this search was justified.
It sounds like they were cautiously optimistic,
They were.
but this had the potential to be a major turning point in the case.
Absolutely. The possibility of finding the murder weapon after all this time was huge.
Yeah.
It could have given them forensic evidence
Right.
linking Edward to the crime,
Right.
finally giving Germaine's family some answers.
What happened when they went to the location identified on the map?
Well, this is where things get frustrating again.
Okay.
They searched the area,
Hmm.
but they never found the gun.
Oh my gosh.
It was another blow to the investigation,
Right.
and for Germaine's family, another hope dashed.
You can only imagine the emotional roller coaster
I
that they must have been
Yeah.
on. A glimmer of hope with Robert's testimony,
Uh-huh.
followed by the crushing disappointment of the unsuccessful search.
It just shows how difficult these cold cases can be.
Yeah.
Sometimes even when you get what seems like a solid lead,
Right.
it leads nowhere.
So what happened with Robert and his friend Edward?
Right.
Did investigators follow up with them after the search came up empty?
Unfortunately, the sources we have don't really say
Oh, wow.
what happened with Robert and Edward after the search.
Okay.
We don't know if they faced any consequences
Right.
or if investigators continued to look into them
Right.
as potential suspects.
It's frustrating to have these unanswered questions,
It is.
these missing pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if Robert was intentionally misleading the investigators
Yeah.
or if Edward had moved the gun,
Right.
knowing the police might come looking for it.
It's all speculation at this point.
Right, and that's one of the things that makes this case so compelling,
Definitely.
but also so frustrating. So where does Germaine's case stand today?
Okay.
Is it still an open investigation?
Yes. Germaine's murder is still unsolved,
Wow.
despite the hard work of the investigators and his family
Right.
and some new leads over the years.
Yeah.
They haven't found the answers they're looking for.
It's hard to believe that in a city like Phoenix,
Right.
a murder can go unsolved for so long.
I know.
What factors do you think might have contributed to this lack of progress?
Well, Detective Cervantes talked about the challenges of working in an environment where fear and silence are so prevalent, the possibility of gang involvement,
Right.
witnesses not wanting to snitch,
Yeah.
and fear of retaliation. All of this can make it really hard to investigate.
We see this code of silence
Right.
emerging again.
Mm-hmm.
People might have information,
Yeah.
but they're afraid to come forward,
Right.
which protects those responsible for the crime.
Exactly. And that silence
Mhm.
can be a huge obstacle for investigators.
All right.
And to make things even more complicated,
Yeah.
the attackers were only known by nicknames,
Right.
Maniac and Xavier.
Mhm.
Trying to find someone
Yeah.
based only on a street name with no real identity
Mm-hmm.
is extremely difficult.
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack
Yeah,
where the needle keeps changing shape.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It really shows how difficult it is to solve a case with so little information.
Right.
It's like you're trying to put together a puzzle,
Yeah.
but half the pieces are missing.
Right.
You have these little bits of information, nicknames, descriptions, a possible motive, but they don't fit together
Right.
to give you a complete picture.
This case is a stark reminder that even with dedicated investigators
Yeah,
and advances in technology,
right.
some crimes remain a mystery.
They do.
What are the broader implications of unsolved cases like Germaine's?
Okay.
What does it mean for the community,
Yeah.
for the family of the victim?
Well, unsolved cases are a big failure of the justice system.
Hmm.
They leave victims and their families without closure,
Right.
with unanswered questions,
Yeah.
and a lack of accountability.
Hmm.
It also sends a message to the community
Yeah.
that some crimes can go unpunished,
Right.
and that can make people feel vulnerable.
It erodes the sense of safety and justice that a community relies on.
Yeah, exactly. And in cases like Germaine's,
Right.
where gangs might be involved,
Hmm.
it can create a climate of fear
Right.
where people are afraid to talk to the police
Right.
because of the possibility of revenge.
It becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Silence protects those who commit crimes,
Right.
and that lack of accountability
Mm-hmm.
perpetuates the cycle of violence.
Precisely. But despite all of this,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to remember that unsolved cases
Yeah.
are not forgotten cases.
Right.
They stay open.
Yeah.
And with new technology,
Mm.
new leads can come up even years later.
We've seen that with DNA technology. It's exactly. Cold cases that were once considered unsolvable
Yeah,
have been reopened and solved,
right.
bringing justice, even if delayed, to the families.
Absolutely. And it can bring a sense of closure to
Yeah.
those who have been hurting for so long.
Is there anything else we can learn from Germaine's story?
I think so.
What does it tell us about the human spirit,
Yeah.
about the enduring power of hope?
Germaine's case really shows how resilient people can be,
Mm-hmm.
especially his mother, Veronica.
Right.
She never gave up hope,
Right.
even with all the setbacks and dead ends.
Right.
She kept fighting for justice for her son.
Her story is so powerful.
It is.
It reminds us that even after a tragedy,
Yeah.
hope can still exist.
Right.
It can push us to search for answers,
Absolutely.
demand accountability,
Mm-hmm.
and never forget those we've lost.
Exactly. And that's why it's important to keep telling these stories,
Right.
to keep their memories alive.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners?
Well, Germaine's case really highlights the complexities
Hmm.
of unsolved murders.
Right.
It shows how important community involvement is
Right.
and how hard it is to overcome fear and silence
Yeah.
and the impact these crimes have on families and communities.
It also reminds us that even without all the answers,
Yes,
the pursuit of justice needs to continue.
it does.
And
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
all it takes is one person
Mm-hmm.
with the courage to speak up,
Yeah.
to share what they know.
Right.
No matter how small it seems,
Right.
that one piece of information
Mm-hmm.
could be the key to solving the case.
Exactly.
So for our listeners who may be in Phoenix
Yeah.
or have any connection to this case,
Right.
what can they do if they have information,
Okay.
even if it's from years ago?
Right. If anyone has any information about Germaine Johnson's murder,
Mm-hmm.
they can contact the Phoenix Police Department
Right.
or Silent Witness.
You can even remain anonymous.
You can.
If you're concerned about your safety, your tip could be what brings justice for Germaine
It could.
and provide some closure for his family after all these years.
It would mean so much to them.
It's been almost 2 decades since that tragic night.
Wow.
And while time may pass,
Right.
the impact of this crime continues to be felt.
It does.
We've seen how unsolved cases leave a void,
Yeah.
not just for the family,
Right.
but for the whole community.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reminder that justice delayed
Yeah.
can feel like justice denied.
It can.
We can't let Germaine's story be forgotten.
We can't.
We have to keep his memory alive
Right.
and keep looking for answers.
We have to.
And that's what we've tried to do today,
Yeah.
to shed light on this case,
Mm.
explore the complexities of the investigation,
Right.
and emphasize the importance of every piece of information.
Even the smallest detail can make a difference.
Maybe someone listening right now remembers something,
It's possible.
a detail they thought was insignificant at the time.
Right.
Or maybe they heard a rumor, a whisper that could be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
We urge you to come forward.
Don't hesitate.
Don't underestimate the power of your memory.
Absolutely.
Even a seemingly small detail could be the missing link
It could.
that investigators need.
Right.
We want to thank you for joining us
Yes.
on this deep dive into Germaine Johnson's case.
It's been a fascinating discussion.
It's a story that highlights the importance of seeking justice,
Absolutely.
the power of never giving up,
Hmm?
and the enduring need for answers.
We all need closure.
If you found this episode compelling,
Yeah.
please subscribe to The Deep Dive
Yeah.
for more in-depth explorations of
Uh-huh.
intriguing stories
Yeah.
and important issues.
Definitely.
And as always, thank you for listening.
Thank you. If anyone has any information about the murder of Germaine Johnson, they can contact the Phoenix Police Department or Silent Witness.
Right.
You can even stay anonymous, if you're worried about your safety.
Yeah.
Your tip could be the thing that finally brings justice for Germaine and gives his family some peace after all this time.
It's been almost 20 years since that awful night.
I know.
And even though time has passed,
Right.
the impact of this crime is still being felt.
It is.
We've talked about how these unsolved cases can really leave a hole,
Yeah.
not just for the family,
Right.
but for the whole community.
Mm.
And it shows us that justice delayed
Yeah.
sometimes feels like justice denied.
You can't.
We can't let Germaine's story fade away.
You can't.
We have to keep his memory alive
Right.
and keep searching for answers.
We do.
And that's exactly what we've tried to do today.
Yeah.
To bring this case to light,
Uh-huh.
talk about the challenges of the investigation,
Right.
and really stress how important even the smallest bit of information can be.
Every little detail can make a difference.
Maybe someone listening right now
Yeah.
remembers something,
It's possible.
something they didn't think was important back then.
Right.
Or maybe they've heard something,
Yeah.
a rumor or something,
Yeah.
that might be connected to this case.
Right.
We urge you to come forward.
Don't wait.
Don't underestimate what your memory might hold.
Absolutely.
Even a little detail
It could be.
could be the missing piece
It could be the key.
that investigators need.
That's right.
We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive
Yes.
into Germaine Johnson's case.
It's been a really interesting discussion.
It's a story that reminds us how important it is to keep fighting for justice,
Absolutely.
to never give up,
Mm-hmm.
and to keep searching for the truth.
We all need closure.
If you were captivated by this episode,
Yeah.
please subscribe to The Deep Dive
Right.
for more deep dives
Mm-hmm.
into intriguing stories
Yeah.
and pressing issues.
Definitely.
And as always,
Yeah.
thank you for listening.
Thank you for having me. And remember, you can find more information about Germaine's case and ways to help on our website. We'll have links to the Phoenix Police Department, Silent Witness,
Yeah.
and other resources.
And if you're interested in learning more about unsolved cases,
Yes.
and the impact they have.
Mm-hmm.
We have a whole section on our website
Right.
dedicated to that.
You can also find transcripts of all of our episodes and links to additional resources.
And as always, we encourage you to share this episode with your friends and family
Yeah.
and on social media.
It's important to keep these conversations going
Right.
and raise awareness.
Yeah, thank you again for joining us
Thank you.
for this deep dive into Germaine Johnson's case.
It's been a pleasure.
It's a story that reminds us that every life matters
Absolutely.
and that everyone deserves justice,
Everyone.
no matter how much time has passed.
That's right.
We hope that one day
Yeah.
Germaine's family will find the answers they seek,
I hope so too.
and that his case will serve as a reminder that we must never stop fighting for justice.
We can't give up.
And for those who've been silenced,
Right.
we must be their voice.
We have to speak for those who can't speak for themselves.
Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking the truth.
And never stop asking questions.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.